welcome to this edition of the Clyde and Lomond Heritage Podcast with myself, Paul Murdoch, and
myself, Robert Ryan. We're going to have a wee look at Loch Lomond and in particular its islands.
Okay. So, Torrance is a heavily wooded one, isn't it?
Yeah. They're all relatively heavily wooded, but Torrance is so thick with wood that I've not really landed there much on my canoe, but I have done it a couple of times.
I think in the early 20th century, sort of 1908, some young workers at the John Brown's shipyard in Clyde Bank, there was quite often, even as far back as that, they'd hire a boat at Loch and travel to Torrance to spend some time there, Saturday afternoon, camping overnight probably, like we've done ourselves.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
So I think there was a bit of a disaster one time on the weekend of Saturday and Sunday, 23rd, 24th of May 1908. Four of the lads decided to stay another night on Torrance as there was a strike at the shipyard.
Wow.
Believe it or not. And they set off for Balloch, I guess for extra provisions on the Sunday to keep them going for the rest of the weekend. And that Sunday evening,
that was the last they were seen on.
It had perished on the return journey
to
the island, I take it.
Yeah. There is a memorial there to the guys, but the Loch in general it's very safe. But once the wind goes even above 15 miles an hour, you can have some sizable waves. If somebody was maybe leaning out the boat in an awkward way when one of those waves hit,
I've had a boat with a small ship 3 or 4 years in the Loch, and there was a few accidents we had. Even just my daughter
swapping seats in
going
the boat
off the side and had her wellies on, took her right under, and luckily she managed to get out. And it's easily done, and unfortunately, my mum used to always say to me that the Loch takes 7 a year. And so I know if you're local, it can be safe at certain times, but even local people can be caught out.
Local folk, and there's people die swimming there apart from anything else. But I'm always very particular about my life jacket and everything when I go in the canoe. And it's an inflatable. It's got 5 separate inflatable chambers. So if I were to end up in the water, I've got something to keep me afloat.
Just one, we'll come back to this in a minute, but one quick wee diversion is there's a story, of course, from Balloch Castle when the Earls of Lennox had Balloch Castle, and about the sort of 11 girls drowning. There was a cairn between the castle and I guess across the water where the maids docked and stuff, And basically they swam out, one of the girls swam out the cairn, got in trouble, and the rest swam out to try and save her, and all 11 drowned. Oh,
they all perished. Wow.
And they did away with the cairn, they tore it down to stop anybody else swimming out there. So it has quite a reputation.
Another island we mentioned there next to Torrance is Creanch, and I've often passed Creanch in the canoe. I've landed there the odd time, but really only briefly because of the thickness of the trees. But when my friend and I used to go out regularly in these canoe trips to the islands, we noticed a rock on the map called the Prince of Wales Rock, and you can actually see it through the binoculars from the north end of Inchmurren. But we took the trouble to go in the canoes near the rock, and we found this rock, the Prince of Wales Rock, when we speculated what on earth would be the connection to the Prince of Wales of this sort of random rock in Loch Lomond. And it might not surprise you to know that there was a steamer called the Prince of Wales.
Just thinking that, okay.
And the steamer actually, I think there was a fog or something like that, and it found this rock.
It found it. So,
fortunately, so that was probably I wonder if it was named after Edward VII, but so I don't think there was any loss of life because one of the other steamers came and effected a rescue.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't because the rock looked like the Prince of Wales.
No.
So you were saying about the collision, what happened after that?
Yeah, well, subsequently they were towed down the Leven and up to Bowling for repairs, and the Prince of Wales continued to carry passengers for many years. Right. The mystery was solved for us when we read that story.
Right.
So it's just an interesting wee anecdote about Creanch.
You want to tell us a wee bit about Inch? I can hardly say it. The names of these blooming islands. Inch Tavanach. Yeah, and we'll put a wee map sort of here and give you an idea where these islands are. I'll pop one up.
Well, Inchtavanach's very accessible because that's just across from Aldacly, and which is just about a mile from Luss.
Right.
It's
where we did
where we did the trailer for this podcast. Yeah. Well, we did it for Banbury Bay, but that's adjacent to Aldacly. There are many animals who call Inchtavanach home, some wild and some domestic. And if I took this photo of this rather magnificent Hieland coo, which should be in your screen if you're watching the YouTube version. And it's thought that St. Kesarg, who was a considerable Christian presence in the area, it was thought that he was killed there. It was once a site of a monastery, giving rise to its translated name of the Monks' Isle. And a large house stood on the site of the monastery. A large house stood on the site of the monastery since 1760. Now, the island is predominantly wooded again. It's here that the monks rang the bell to the call of prayer on the island.
Okay. I mean, it's quite, these days, most islands are privately owned, it must be said.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think you've got to be a wee bit cautious. More towards the mouth of the Endrick and that side of the Loch, I'm guessing the park authorities will own like Inchcailloch and stuff.
I think the Cahoons have still got a big, I think Luss Estates have still got a say. We'll talk later about the ownership of a couple of the islands, in particular Inchconaghan.
So still talking about Inchtavanach, roe deer are recorded to have lived here. And there are certainly fallow deer.
There's certainly fallow deer. I've seen them in the island.
And so James Colquhoun built a winding path up to the summit of Clyde in the 17th century.
The highest point in the island,
Yeah.
And
you're going to say about the poet Samuel Taylor?
Yeah. Well, they did a wee tour. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, who most people will remember as the author of The Ancient Mariner, the Rime of the Ancient Mariner, together with William Wordsworth.
Fairly famous poet himself.
One of the most
daffodils.
Yes, I know, and he was a big fan of Burns in turn. They came to the Loch in the early 1800s and visited the islands, and Inchtavanach was one of the islands that they visited, and that's not the last mention we'll have today of Coleridge Taylor and William Wordsworth.
Okay.
There's a farm which occupies the south end of the island, Paul, and I'm not sure who owns it now, but about 10 years ago, it was still owned by a retired fireman, and he was a horseman. And believe it or not, his name was Roy Rogers.
That was his real name.
No, that was his real name, Roy Rogers. Maybe the first name. I wonder if that's a nickname. But I often spoke to them. They would swim horses back and forward to the island, one of which was called Shoshone, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of folk watching will remember Shoshone doing the pleasure trips around Luss in the Pony and Trap. Yeah.
Right, okay. Yeah. So just going off piste a wee bit, we're still talking about the Loch. Cranog's came out my head. I've been to visit the one in Dumbuck. Femdy, once they go and see it at low tide. There's still the circle of the wooden posts.
Sure.
A crannog basically was a man-made structure out in the water.
Yes.
That gave people protection at night.
And there is in Loch Tay, near Killin somewhere, there's a rebuilt crannog.
A reproduction.
And the interesting thing from the Loch Lomond point of view is that there is an island there just off Aldacly, Swan Island, which was a medieval crannog.
Yeah.
And
crannogs go way back about 3,500 years. They're old structures.
So medieval might not have been
No, but they were used up until recently.
Yes.
I mean, only as far back as 200 years or something, or 300 years ago.
There's another island on the Loch, Inchgalbraith, which actually has the ruins of an old castle on it. And there are theories that perhaps was a man-made island, and a crannog. I personally think it's probably a wee bit too far from the shore for that to be right, but you never know.
Well, they did take stones and make crannogs as well, so they made mounds and then built around the mounds.
That's right, yeah.
So there was quite a bit of construction involved in some of the crannogs.
Yeah.
Going way back, and I think that Loch Lomond certainly got more than 10, dotted about the place.
I didn't realise there was as many as that.
Quite a lot. Yeah, it's a lovely stretch of water for people to have inhabited right back from early times.
If you go to the one at Swan Island at Aldacly, there's one of these tourist boards that tell you the history of it. It's almost worth a wee stop there in the car just for 10 minutes anyway, just to get the history of the place.
And of course, Loch itself has a few pointers to the history of the Loch Lomond as well, because in the churchyard there, you've got the grave of a Viking, which is known as a hogback stone.
Right.
It's just it's almost like an upturned hull of a boat. The shape of it, surprisingly, in Vikings. And they're always decorated differently. And there's a small video on YouTube I've done already about this, a short. And the one in Loch is covered in scales, like fish scales.
Right, okay.
Other ones, different parts of the country. There's quite a lot in Govan, actually. Are covering different animals, obviously linked to the person who passed away, I'm imagining. Yeah. But the gravestone in Loch is quite remarkable, still very evident in the graveyard there.
A kind of tenuous link to the gravestone. Of course, we did our trailer for this video at Bandry Bay. Yeah. Again, quite near Aldacly, adjacent to Aldacly, where a lot of people will probably think that the statue that's in the water there, known as Wee Peter locally, you'll have heard the story, and I heard it when I was young.
My mum told me.
Oh, my mother told me as well. There. A wee boy drowned there, and my parents told me it was one of the Cahoons, and they told me that that this statue was put up as a memorial to the wee boy. But the truth is rather more mundane than that, and certainly less tragic. And that is, it was a man from Loch who was working in London and noticed the statue discarded, ready to be taken away as rubbish. And something, he liked something about this statue, brought it back to Loch, built the plinth, and put it there. Right. So that's the kind of rather more prosaic reason that the statue's there.
And we'll talk about wallabies in a minute, because we've mentioned that in the trailer.
That's right.
We should.
Yeah.
But just talking about general wildlife in Loch Lomond, it's probably one of the best places in Scotland.
It's amazing.
If not the world, for looking at wildlife. It's got an amazing tapestry of wildlife, especially birds. I like watching birds. And honestly,
I've heard that.
I knew that was coming. Anyway, the Great Crested Grebe, one of my favourites. You can see off Moss Priory and certainly near the Endrick and other places as well. And also, people have seen hoopoo.
Really?
Which is a thing you associate with Spain.
North Africa.
The crest, the black white wings and the wee curved bill. If you've seen them on holiday, beautiful birds.
And were the people sober at the time?
Well, I think so. The Great Grey Shrike, some real rarities have been seen.
Yeah.
But one of the real rarities of Loch Lomond is in the fish population, the powan.
The powan, only found in Loch Lomond and one other place. Loch Eck.
Which you said it's near Dunoon. I think, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, the powan, and just to let you know, way back, 8,000 years ago, when the Ice Age was all sort of settling down, and there was a tsunami which took away Doggerland. There's a whole talk about that separately. But Loch Lomond was a tidal loch at one point.
So it was a sea loch, and it was saline, and
certain animals, fish would have been trapped. Then when the sea level sort of went up down again, it became fresh water.
And I've heard that the powan was actually a variety of herring. And it's obviously
it ties in the seawater.
Well, it's been able to adapt through evolution to the freshwater conditions.
Yeah, and as I said, it's probably the most numerous fish in the loch, but probably very seldom caught by fishermen because it actually feeds on plankton. So not something that people can easily put on a hook.
You can't bait a hook with
plankton. He's a plankton. I put in that hook. So quite difficult to catch.
I don't know if you know the wee. It's not a poem, it's not a slogan, it's just a little word of wisdom, which was the wave without wind, fish without fin, and the floating island. Right. And the floating island, there's two theories about that. And one is that it's a piece of rock that becomes visible when the loch is at low level, and when it's at high level, you don't see it. Yeah. But the other one, and I think this is probably more plausible, would be that there would be a kind of matted mass of vegetation, which had grown to a certain size and had floated around. And this is where the legend of the floating island came along. Yeah. And the wave without wind, I can certainly vouch for being out in the Loch and it not appearing very windy. But there is, there's considerable waves, especially when you're in a canoe.
Yeah, I bet, aye. Well, I've been in the paddleboard once or twice and it can be dodgy. Even when you think it's a flat calm day.
Oh, I've not got the balance for one of those.
Well, I kneel on it mostly, but I've had it. But no, it's an amazing place, the Loch, wildlife-wise. Again, ospreys, came back here. We all remember Boat Garten when they first came back.
Yeah.
And how amazing it was. And people used to travel miles to see an osprey. And there now is certainly more than, I would say, half a dozen pairs around the Loch Lomond area.
What the last pair of ospreys previously, in the previous iteration on the Loch, were shot apparently at Inchgalbraith by one of the Cahoons. And I think that was in the 19th century. And it took till the late 20th century for them to return. Now, a great place to watch them sometimes is from the north end of Inchtavanach. And you can watch them, and they terrorise the seagulls who have taken up residence on Heather Island. The seagulls don't seem to know that these birds of prey aren't interested in them. They're interested in the fish.
I'm not going to tell you exactly where the nests are, but they're quite visible when you see them in massive structures. There was one at Gartahan, Ross Priory, for many years, right beside the Ross Priory itself. And I remember taking a picture of two ospreys mating. And just so, not that I was up to do that, I just so happened that's what's going on at the time.
Bird porn.
Kinda, yeah. And, but it's quite a rare picture and I love it. In fact, I put it on the front of the book we're going to be giving away at the end of this, hopefully. They've now gone from that area. It was literally right on the golf course. Balls whizzing by either side.
They're quite a sight.
They're amazing.
When I had a boat for a few years, a wee motorboat, and one day I had if I'd only had a camera that day, I watched the wee seaplane taking off. And just after that, after it had gone out of sight, an osprey literally followed the boat for about a mile. And it was, They look
little big lugubrious seagulls.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes, don't they? You think, is that a seagull? And you go, it's not.
It's a lot bigger.
Much bigger, more kind of feathered wings. Big talons. Probably the size of my hand, if not bigger. Yeah,
but I'd like to mention Inchconach and in particular, there's a few very interesting things about it, Paul. First of all, when I started going there, and you should see a picture coming up, those of you that are watching it on screen, you see a wee picture of the house that was there. And of course, I only ever knew that house as a ruin, but the history of it was very interesting. There was a mysterious fellow called Admiral Sullivan who lived there. He was the first guy to live in this house. And he was supposed to have made his money from the export of tea from Ceylon, Sri Lanka, if you want. And apparently lived there with his manservant. Now, I think perhaps the relationship might have been a wee bit closer than that. We can't prove anything, but the speculation would be that this was perhaps a gay couple in the times that was absolutely no against the law and everything like that. But when we talk about Ivow, the island Ivow, we may mention Admiral Sullivan again, but it was that Lady Cahoon was the reason for the wallabies being there. She was a bit eccentric.
Anna, I think her name was.
Yes, Anna. And she was a great speedboat racer as well. Fastest woman in water, apparently, of her time. But she had the house that Admiral Sullivan had lived in, and she used it as a holiday home, and she introduced the colony of wallabies. Well, apparently she had a menagerie. She had llamas, she had wallabies, she had ostriches, all sorts. But
it's just, where would she get the wallabies from? It's like a wallaby salesman comes to the door.
Do you know, the thing is, Paul, and you might not believe this, but the pet shop at Harrods is on the top floor, and Harrods Pet Shop used to be able.
You'll know this, of course.
Well, yes, in my experience in the pet trade, but I was an interested observer. When I was in London, I went to see Harrods Pet Shop, and they were still selling puppies and all that sort of pedigree Boston Terriers for £3,000 and things like that. But the pet shop at Harrods used to sell tigers, lions, you name it. Any of these guys in their stately homes, I don't imagine they had them on the premises.
No, obviously not.
But they
So
took,
you'd take your pick.
you want a tiger? Certainly, sir. We'll send that to
Unicorn, pick one up next Tuesday. Aye, very good. So
we're not
condoning any of that stuff, of course.
Getting back to Lady Cahoon, I don't know where she got them. I don't know how she got them here from Australia and New Zealand.
But they're still here.
But there's still a colony there. You should see a wee photo coming up of one of their wee faces that I took on the island when I was there. And sometimes though, Paul, you're on the island, you're just walking quite calmly, and all of a sudden one of them jumps out of a bush or something like that. Let me tell you, as Willie Connolly would say, the best known laxative to man. Yeah. But before we leave Inchconaghan, the house was then owned by a Glasgow businessman who he actually commuted every day from that house on Inchconaghan to Glasgow. He'd get the boat to Balloch, he'd get the train from Balloch to Glasgow and travel home. Oh. And then he did that until 1972, when the house became disused because he tried to sell it and there was no buyers. Mm. But the interesting thing now is it does have the island does have a new owner, and that is Kirsty Young. I
was going to say it was, I don't know if she's that keen the Wallabies.
Well, I don't know. I would love to think that the Wallabies would survive. They've become part of the island for over 100 years.
They're pretty harmless things.
Yeah. Well, the Lush Estates tend to say that they damage the trees, but you know what? Plenty of trees in Inchconaghan.
And they've been there for such a long time.
Yeah.
Over 120 years.
Yeah.
So
it's probably certainly one of my favourite islands.
Loch Lomond's only marsupial. So definitely say.
I would say. I think they can swim as well. I think there's been cases. I don't know.
There was a case of one in the mainland.
It was. Or whether some folk in one of their big boats had taken it as a jape. I don't know.
Skipping to the McGregors a wee bit again.
They
had what sort of control of the kind of Balmaha end of the Loch, you think, for quite a while? Them and the McFarlanes?
Well, the McFarlanes
were more Aracher, weren't they?
The McFarlanes were Aracher and Ivow, but of course the McFarlanes have the boatyard at Balmaha, and I believe that they have had that for generations, and their family's been in the area for generations.
Yeah.
But the McFarlanes had the island of at Inverugulis, and they built a castle there.
Yeah.
And during the War of the Three Kingdoms, Oliver Cromwell's Roundheads came and laid waste to the castle.
Right.
And so they built it on another nearby, more central island, the most northerly island in the Loch, Ivow.
Right.
Its right name is something like
You said that perfectly.
Yeah, well, I think there was a bit less saliva involved in Ivow, so that was...
Okay, so they built their next home there.
They did.
So that was the answer to the question in the trailer, of course.
Well, the ruin of the castle is still there, and what they call the dungeon, which is more likely to have been a food store, a below ground space which has been occupied over the years by at least two hermits.
I think we discussed the hermits at one point in chatting.
We've already mentioned Coleridge Taylor and William Wordsworth and his sister Dorothy.
Right.
They visited the island in the early 19th century, and they found the hermit there. And then when they came back and revisited a few years later, and they found that the hermit had died. I think his skeleton was there, Wordsworth was moved to write a poem. Which, if you're lucky, in the next episode, I might read.
Find out which one that actually was, and do that. I think we'll probably wrap it there for this episode. We've talked about a lot of things and covered a lot of the islands. And
we've yet to reference loads of the islands, which in the next episode we can talk about in more detail about Inchcrewn and Inchmone. Very popular sites for people to go and visit. Inchfad, which is one of the inhabited islands. We've yet to speak about really in any detail about Creeinch and some of the other islands, and Inchcolbraith.
So thanks for listening to the podcast. We have a wee competition this week to win this book, which is by myself, features a wee osprey in the front there from Ross Priory, and it's 4 walks in the springtime round west of Bartonshire, and they look at heritage and nature during that walk. And the 4 walks in this one are Balloch Park, Cochnell Car Park, Ross Priory to Duncrane Hill, Dumbarton Central to Alexandria Station. And we look at all the walk and the history, the buildings, and the nature you'll see along the way. The question to get one of these books for free, all you've got to do is put a comment on with the answer, and we'll pick a name out at random, honest. And the question refers to the first part of the Loch Lomond podcast. We told you a story about Torrinch and about some men who unfortunately came to a sticky end on a weekend back in the early 1900s. Where did those men work? Till next time, bye for now.